Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with Extra History. Tonight we're back here with part 4 for John Brown on the raid on Harper's Ferry. So yeah, this is basically where John, goes to national legacy, despite the whole bleeding Kansas incident he caused. So yeah, we're near the end of his journey. I think we just got one more after this, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they usually go 5 or 6, but well, let's see where John Brown's plan of Harper's Ferry goes awry. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's go.
Pennsylvania, August 19th, 1859. Frederick Douglass meets John Brown in the empty quarry, bringing along his friend Shields Green, an escaped slave who has lived with Douglass for a year as a bodyguard. Brown, in disguise, tells them that his operation is almost ready. He has men in position near Harper's Ferry, ready to raid the federal arsenal and take hostages. Harriet Tubman will also alert nearby slaves to join the uprising. But what he needs now is Douglas's help to rally and inspire those recruits. Douglas tries to reason with Brown. "It's a perfect steel trap, John," he says. "The Virginians will massacre them, and the public won't support an attack on the federal government." After an argument, Douglas turns to leave, but Brown, heartbroken, wraps his old friend in a bear hug. "Come with me, Douglas," he begs. Douglas says no, but Shields Green feels differently. So leaving Douglas behind, Green now goes to join Brown's revolution.
Oh boy, this ain't gonna end well. You think Harriet's actually gonna go with this idea?
This John Brown series was chosen by our awesome patrons over on Patreon. And if you want to have a say in the historical topics that we actually make shows about, stay tuned until after the episode. For 3 years, John Brown prepared for his Virginia operation. He bought rifles and pikes, paid for by the Secret Six, a clandestine group of New Englanders willing to fund operations against the South. He hired an English mercenary, a veteran of the Italian revolutions, to help him design his plot, and he studied the Nat Turner Revolt, Garibaldi's campaigns in Italy, and the American and Haitian revolutions. And the plan he came up with was simple: seize the armory at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and hold it. Tubman would spread the word of the revolt, causing enslaved people in the area to flock to Brown's banner. Then they would arm themselves from the federal stocks and retreat to the mountains to start a guerrilla war against slavery. Brown even carried out a dry run of the raid, successfully striking into Missouri to liberate 11 enslaved people and conveying them to Canada. However, the death of a slaveholder, shot when he pulled a revolver, turned public sentiment against Brown. And he'd even written a provisional constitution for those who joined his revolt, one that granted full rights regardless of race or gender. The document...
I mean, good idea, but I don't know, man. When things go, south and you got a revolt, seizing federal property, not, southern property. Dude, this ain't gonna work, right? I'm just saying. Oh boy. If they seceded before you did this, you probably get more support from the North, but oh boy. Anyway.
Had been ratified and adopted during a largely black constitutional convention in the Free Black Enclave of Ontario, Canada. Yet the one thing he could not find after 3 years of recruiting was actually more raiders. As of now, he'd only convinced 21 men to join. Young and idealistic, only 2 of them were over 30. 3 were his sons, Watson, Owen, and Oliver, and 5 of them were black. Shields Green, who had escaped slavery, Lewis Sheridan Leary, who was born free in Oberlin, Ohio to an Irish father and a mixed-race mother, John Anthony Copeland Jr., who had helped break a man out of prison after slave catchers arrested him, Osborne Perry Anderson, who was a freeborn printer and abolitionist, and Dangerfield Newby, who joined out of desperation. As a freed slave, he'd saved $1,500 to buy his wife and children from his former slaveholder, only to have the man raise the price. He needed to save his family. They all gathered at the Kennedy Farm, a secluded house and barn along the Maryland-Virginia border that Brown rented as a staging ground and for arms storage. Along with them was Brown's daughter Anne and daughter-in-law Martha, both teenagers, who served both as lookouts and to throw off attention from neighbors. Until, that is, it was time. October 16th, 1859, Kennedy Farm. There is no more delaying. Brown has heard rumors that they're about to be exposed. The mercenary he'd hired is threatening to rat them out over a pay dispute, and truthfully, there's only so long 20 men can live in a barn attic. Though Harriet Tubman can't be located to spread the word. She's bedridden, but Brown doesn't know that. Still, he simply can't wait anymore. They leave before midnight with a wagon full of rifles and pikes, leaving only Owen Brown, his daughters, and 2 others at the farmhouse. They are to receive and arm the rebel army. He sure will rise when word of the raid gets out. The raiders enter Harper's Ferry by night, cutting telegraph lines and securing bridges. Then the group splits. While Brown's contingent secures the armory, taking the watchman hostage, a second squad enters the home of Colonel Lewis Washington. Washington, the great-grandnephew of George Washington, is a politician and planter. They capture him and proceed to inform all of his slaves that they are now free. Also, they take a pair of pistols owned by Lafayette and a sword given to George Washington by Frederick the Great. By midnight, John Brown is in command of Harper's Ferry. He has prominent hostages, legendary weapons on his hip, and complete control of the situation. Now he needs only to wait for the uprising. But that's precisely when things start to spiral out of control. Elsewhere, a railroad watchman runs into a pair of Brown's raiders guarding a bridge. And when they try to take the watchman prisoner, he escapes, alerting the authorities to what he thinks are a pair of train robbers lying in ambush. Rail employees signal an oncoming train to stop and warn them of the danger on the bridge. But the train's engineer and baggage man disbelieve this report and dismount to walk ahead to get a look for themselves. In the darkness, all they see are men with rifles. Suddenly, the raiders order them to freeze. The engineer and baggage man run, and the raiders fire. And in a sense of twisted irony, the baggage handler, a free black man, is the first person to die in Brown's raid. Hearing the shooting, train passengers now disembark with their own pistols and begin blazing away at the bridge party, who return fire. Bizarrely, at this moment, a few Harper's Ferry residents stir, but assuming that it's just a robbery or a railroad strike that doesn't really affect them, they just go back to sleep. And it's around this time that it's Brown's turn to make a bad decision. With not enough men to control the train, he decides to let it through, but also boards it beforehand to inform the conductor that this is not a robbery, mind you, but an abolitionist insurrection. That train will race ahead and wire news of the raid to Washington. Meanwhile,
probably should have kept his mouth shut. Oops. Dude, you literally fired on a train. Like, dude, I'm surprised you didn't keep it hostage, because let's be real. If they got out, you know they were gonna be like, yep, we're screwed. Anyway, I guess the residents are about to finally realize they got robbed, or at least being raided.
The residents of Harper's Ferry wake to find their town in crisis. As armory workers report for duty, Brown takes them hostage in a small but sturdy fire engine house, guarded by Washington's liberated slaves wielding pikes. As word spreads, residents swarm around the building, firing shotguns and pistols. Most had gathered in the saloon that morning to find out what was going on, and had been drinking for quite a while at this point. Then a townsperson is killed by returning raider fire, which increases the public's anger. Militias from the surrounding countryside converge on Harper's Ferry, and Brown's raiders find themselves facing overwhelming fire. The first of his men to fall is Dangerfield Newby, who is hit in the throat with an iron spike that was loaded into a musket. Everywhere, raiders are retreating. The engine house is taking such heavy fire from a nearby hill that even the hostages worry that they're going to be killed by their own rescuers. Inside, there's talks of forming a truce, and one raider emerges with a hostage to talk terms, but is instead captured. Then a second hostage convinces Brown to try negotiating again, and yells out the door to give the raiders safe conduct. Brown's son Watson and another raider emerge unarmed, waving a white flag. They only get a few steps from the door before shots bang out from windows and rooftops. A bullet cleaves into Watson's stomach, and he has to be dragged, whimpering, back into cover. This sight unnerves another raider, so much so that he sneaks to the Potomac River and tries to swim to safety, only making it partway before he himself is hit. The wounded man clings to a rock until militia wade out and shoot him in the head. It's at this point that Brown realizes the army of liberated slaves is not coming, and the steel trap has snapped shut. His old friend Frederick Douglass had been right.
Did warn you.
The Virginians would rather blow him sky high along with his hostages than let him hold Harper's Ferry for an hour. He's waited too long to escape. It only gets worse when Oliver Brown, defending the engine house, takes a bullet to the stomach, and then the mayor of Harper's Ferry, finally deciding to see the situation for himself, is killed when the besieged raiders mistake him for a sniper. News of his death unleashes utter fury. Militiamen burst into a building where one of the raiders is being held prisoner and drag him to a bridge. 80,000 will rise to avenge me, he says, and give liberty to the slaves. they shoot him through the forehead. People then start using dead raiders for target practice, and men swarm Dangerfield Newby's body, defiling it and cutting off his ears as keepsakes. 2 other raiders die, shot trying to cross the river, and another is captured, though the raiders that can escape do, with 2 others swimming under the cover of night, and the party at the Kennedy farm evacuating as well. Now, John Brown is nearly alone. He's surrounded, 2 of his sons lay dying, and Oliver, his youngest, begs for his father to kill him. And finally, at midnight, the U.S. Marines arrive, led by Colonel Robert E. Lee. And John Brown is left to make peace with the fact that his mission of liberation now must become one of martyrdom. You know,
Yep. Probably should have realized, like, dude, unless you cut, like, luck, you're not gonna work. Dude, really? Oh boy. Not the best idea. Probably should have started the guerrilla warfare before the raid. But nope. And now he's caught. Well, rest in peace, John Brown. You know what this story ends for you. Anyway, I'll see you guys for that part. Till then, thanks for watching, everybody. Laters.